Okay, hello, my friends. You are listening to the Scenes on Toast Top 10s with Friends podcast, the podcast where we determine definitive top 10 lists for everything. Well, I run out of friends before I cover every single topic, most likely. I'm Jack from Scenes on Toast, your host for this podcast, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome a very good friend and an even better guitar player, Joe Gallacher. Joe, mate, what's happening? Are you well? Have you had your dinner? You feeling good?
I'm feeling great. I'm very excited to be here. I'm feeling alright. I've had my tea. We had a chippy tonight.
Oh,
So yeah.
here for the
So I
fun.
I so I had a king rib. I don't know if you've ever had a king rib before, but
I've seen you have a king rib.
king ribs are one of Scotland's finest delicacies, in my opinion.
Oh.
Um, I think we should be exporting king ribs instead of like gin and whiskey. um, but I mean, the thing is, it is essentially just deep fried floor meat, um, and various spices. But my God, is it delicious?
It's
Like
like
honest, like king rib. What is that? Is that pork? Is it beef? Is it all of them? Is it is it like a sort of mysterious animal that only like chip shop
yeah, they breed them.
people know about? Yeah,
Like,
they breed them. Yeah, it's like the haggis. It's like the legend of the haggis has got like the wee legs and it runs about the Highlands of Scotland. Do they just keep these mysterious pork-based animals in the back of
a
chip
king rib.
chip shop chip shop restaurants up and down the country?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day we could probably go a good top tens with friends just on like chip shop material. To be fair, like, and
Chip shop. Yeah,
my I would imagine that king rib is probably the meat that the meat that falls behind the counter when they're like cutting off from like the elephant's leg.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
one that
yeah.
doesn't make it, and then they're just like sweeping up at the end. They're like, "Oh, that's still warm. We'll put that. We'll shove that out or something." But yeah. So
It's
as
like it's like that Simpsons episode where lunch lady Doris is just shoving the mattress into the meat grinder. That's that's what a king rib is.
and we love it.
Just mattress.
I know. Sponsored by King Rib. All right. I know. All right. So, as per tradition, we'll go with a couple of hard hitting questions for you to make you really uncomfortable and just get you warmed up. Really, and it's easy for me because I ask them and don't have to answer them. So, first question is, and it's quite apt for what we're going to be talking about today. Right. So, would you rather be able to play every instrument in the world, like flawlessly, just be able to pick it up, do whatever you want with it, or would you rather be able to speak and understand every single language?
Wow.
I know.
Um,
I came up with this question when I was
I
on the toilet.
you know what I've when I've been listening to these podcasts, I've been like when you do this segment, I've been able to answer the questions like really quickly. I've gone, oh yeah, I would do that, or I would do that. But you've landed a curveball right on my lap here. Um, I am gonna, and this might surprise you actually. I'm going to go for the languages one. I feel like that would have a better use case. Because here's the thing: if I could learn any language, if I could understand or speak any language in the world, I could go to any country
yeah.
and have someone teach me their sort of nation's instrument or something like that. I feel like, whereas if I could play any instrument, that would only be beneficial to like a smaller amount of people. Whereas if I could speak another language or any language in the world, I feel like on a maybe that's a selfish kind of thing. On a
No.
personal level, that would be like more beneficial for me in life.
Yeah. No, do you know what? Because when I was thinking up, again, I thought up this question. I think I was sitting on the toilet or something. And as I do and just procrastinating instead of doing my actual job. And I was thinking about it, and I was the same as you. Because, like, just for the listeners, both know me and Joe are expert musicians. You'll have heard
We
of
we,
us,
we
you
are
know.
we are we are the top tier musicians in Scotland.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and if you've not, if you're out with Scotland, you can believe that. Like, you know what I
But
mean?
yeah, but for people who know us, they're just like, nah, that's not right.
Yeah, get that cut. But and I was thinking that as well because I also think that if you could speak every language, like you're talking, there are languages like in parts of Africa per se that there's probably even a tiny percentage of the world
Yeah,
like out with.
and also there's probably an instrument played in that tiny
Yeah.
part of the world. Whereas if you go there and you can speak their language, they could teach you that.
Yes.
And also, I think there's probably less languages in the world than there are playable instruments.
Really.
So I would say so. Yeah, I think
Oh.
because anything could be an instrument. You know what I mean? Like an elastic
Oh.
band wrapped around a pencil. There's an instrument. I think I think being able to play every instrument actually might become quite of a burden because
Yeah.
you go out to dinner and it's like, oh, there's that guy that plays any instrument ever, and then they go and like they go and pull out like a lute, and you've got to, you're sitting there while your steak's going cold playing like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Or they hand you like I don't know, they hand you like a spoon or something. They're like,
yeah,
"Fucking come on,
well,
here's a
exactly.
beat
You're
on
like,
that. Go on."
yeah, because so it would be like, so I think people would then start to like take liberties almost because so they'd be like, okay, you could play an instrument, go and make, like you said, go and make these spoons an instrument. So you're like constantly under pressure to perform.
Yeah, I feel like you would probably end up being exploited in some way. You know, someone
You
Simon
would you would
Cowell
you
or someone will get a hold of you and just be like, "I'm going to milk this cow until it is dry." But anyway, okay, so we got a lot of traction on that one. So next, the next
was there?
question.
Oh my god, so
Yeah,
another
I know,
one.
but this one's a little bit more. This one is intense, and again, pretty related to what we're talking about today. So I'll just get up. So who was the best band or artist you've ever seen live?
Wow, again, wow.
And
Um,
listen, that's why they pay me the big bucks.
there's I think there's like the that is a question I think that we as musicians are asked quite a lot, and I think there's various factors
Mm,
that need to be taken into consideration. And I think you're probably expecting me to say John Mayer, and yes, it was a good show, um, but we were like right at the back
mm,
that night, so
right.
that kind of put a dampener on that. The best performer I have ever seen was Bruno Mars at Tea in the
Interesting.
Park in 2011. Just
Oh,
a supremely talented
yeah.
musician, like a total professional. Just he can sing, he can dance, he can play guitar. I think he probably jumped on the drums at one point. Just one of these like complete pop stars.
Yeah. I'd imagine that his backing band were also like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
the absolute creme de la creme of like
of like session
band.
musicians. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were.
yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly. He would definitely be in my top three. Eminem was another one, which
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah.
I saw him in Glasgow. I remember I went to see Bring Me the Horizon for my 18th birthday,
Of
and that was
course.
again
Yeah.
a fantastic show. Just like pure blood, sweat, and
Just getting the snot absolutely knocked out you for
yeah,
like 20
yeah.
minutes. Like.
And I think what's cool about those shows is that yes, they can be quite physical in terms of like the mosh pit, but when somebody appears to be in like sort of real danger,
Mhm.
the sort of good camaraderie, if you like,
Yeah.
of moshers comes out, and they're, you know what I mean, they're not there to
Yeah,
intentionally
I think
hurtful.
it's like it's confined to like the people that do want to kind of get involved in it. You know what I mean? And if there's someone that is, you know, that is visibly like distressed or hurt or something, like it's. And to be fair, I've seen and experienced like like worse kind of crowd control at like Britpop indie gigs. You know what I mean? Of just people that are just
Yeah,
absolute idiots and just
yeah,
you know
absolutely.
um, grand. So
Yeah,
who would
so
you?
I'm yeah, so sorry, just to underline that question. I yeah, I'm going to say Bruno Mars.
Interesting, very interesting. I did not expect you to say that, but that's listen. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
That's the nature. That's the nature of these podcasts.
I know. I know.
I mean,
So to just explain what our theme is going to be today, if you haven't read the description, we are going to be trying to create the top 10 definitive list for influential musicians in history. So a pretty big and pretty meaty task, but a task that I think
and possibly potentially a very controversial one as well, depending on
like
who we choose.
I'm
This could lose you a lot of listeners.
I mean again, as long as my mum keeps listening, because I would say she's probably about
Yeah,
50 to 75% of my listener
and
demographic is my mum.
as long as I keep listening to the first 20
Yeah,
minutes,
yeah, as long as you keep listening when I send it to you.
I always like. Well, I listen on my way to work,
Yeah.
and it must be like the length of the journey it takes for me to leave my house to getting to my work.
Well, listen,
You're
it's
usually like on the third
yeah,
like point in your list, and I never
yeah.
hear how they end.
Well, do you know what? Any interaction for me is good interaction. To be honest,
Yeah.
SEOs and all and all that business
What?
chat. I don't know. I don't know. So, me and Joe have got about 6, 7, maybe 8 options that we are going to put on the table. We're going to try and make a definitive top 10. If at the end of our discussion we have more than 10, we're going to have to do a bit of a veto, a bit of discussion about who's getting cut from the team. Like, sorry, champ, you just not made it. And then when we get that top 10, we will decide a top tier and a bottom tier, and then we'll also decide the most influential artist, musician of history. And
In our opinions.
no, 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 no.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah.
This is
You're right.
real. Again, I don't care what anyone else thinks. Like my mum don't care. You know, this is real. This is what's going to happen. Okay,
Okay.
so, but yeah, just to preface as well, a little bit tongue in cheek, and also it's probably hard to not put personal preference into these. I tried hard on my ones to
Well,
have a mixture of
yeah.
like bands that I or artists that I liked, but also like looking at it as a whole because there's maybe artists in these lists that I don't listen to every single day or even this year, but it's undeniable, you know.
So the way I went about it when I was doing my research was I tried to, instead of picking artists initially, I picked genres, and then I
Oh,
went and maybe had a look at who was the most influential within that genre. So
interesting.
that kind of led me down a path of possibly only one or two of the bands or artists in my list I would consider that I would listen to, but I do appreciate their influence on music as a whole.
Interesting. Well, do you know what? Why don't we? I think that's a good segue. Why don't you kick us off? Why don't you go first and
Okay,
tell me, like, doesn't have to be in any specific order, just, you know, whatever one you want to talk about
so
first.
I think when you're counting down a list of most influential bands and artists, you would be remiss to omit this group. And I feel like we just need to get it out of the way. The Beatles.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. We have,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that's that. Um, Now, at the risk of being very controversial, I once went through a stage of, in fact, up until very recently, I would not have considered myself a fan of the
Hmm.
Beatles. I would have said, nah, not for me. Um, but I listened to Revolver, which was
Mm.
released in 1966, and in my opinion, that's the best pop record of all time.
Mm.
Because, but here's why. When you listen to Revolver by the Beatles, it all sounds very familiar. And then you remember that it was released in 1966, so a lot of what you're hearing as familiar had never been done before.
Mm.
There's a track, She Said, and the first time I heard that, I was convinced that Noel Gallagher must have listened to that particular song and went, "No, that's it. I don't need to listen to any more music.
Yeah.
I'm just going to write all music like that."
Yeah.
Because it is literally She Said by the Beatles, released in 1966, is every Oasis song ever. It's a lovely chord progression with a nice lead guitar over the top, some vaguely interesting vocals, brilliant song, but Noel Gallagher just went, "Yep, that's it. I'm having that," and
Yeah.
then went and made millions.
Yeah.
Um, because I think what you have to remember with like the Beatles is what they did. It was the first time they ever did it, and people hearing it, it was the first time they'd ever heard something like that. Our ears, I think, by the time we are 13, 14, and we listen to the Beatles for the first time, we've already heard
Mm.
that from
Anything.
like yeah, exactly,
Like.
anything. So we're kind of going, nah, yeah, well, I don't get it, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But you've got to kind of take it from the perspective of, well, no, that was the first time. And it really amazes me to think that like in the 60s, they were writing songs that could pass for like modern day
Mhm.
rock. I
Oh.
mean, Revolver is a fantastic album. Just a brilliant, brilliant record.
Do you know, every single thing you said is the exact same way I felt about the Beatles, and very similar up to a point. I was also like, I was like, I wouldn't have called myself a fan of the Beatles. All right, again, I didn't think I was a fan of the Beatles because, yeah, I just and again, it was almost obviously that thing where something is so big that it becomes a bit uncool to like it, which is dumb, which is, you know what I mean, which is a dumb
Yeah,
thing. But I think when I
yeah.
was younger, it was just like everybody. It was, I wanted to like other bands, but then now
There was
as
probably a part of me when I said, "Nah, I don't like the Beatles." I was trying to be deliberately contrarian.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, there's that guy. There's that guy that doesn't like the like." I want people to like turn their heads when they saw me and like,
There's
"That's
that
that guy
dick
that
who doesn't
doesn't
like the Beatles.
exactly." Which is like, come on, that's like, I think yeah, I don't think anybody can really say that they don't like the
I
Beatles.
literally, I
Listen,
like,
listen, they've got songs that are like Obla Di Obla Da is
yeah,
nonsense, and
yeah,
to an extent, so is Yellow Submarine, which is on Revolver.
yeah.
But again, it was up until that point. What did you have? You had like your what was popular music? It was like your
Shaking
12 bar,
Stevens.
yeah, like your 12 bar blues.
Yeah, or like,
That
yeah, or like
yeah, like
Conway Twitty or something.
Yeah,
You
like
know?
Chuck Berry would be on like the telly on a Saturday night.
No,
Um, so it was this kind of
I
new
like,
thing.
in my notes about it. I kind of wrote, because again, I'm this musician, and I actually think I'm going through a bit of
Did
a,
you pick the Beatles? Did you pick the
yeah,
Beatles as
yeah,
well?
yeah. I put them in. I think it was almost impossible to not put them in, and
You
I
couldn't.
was like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've been going through a bit of a renaissance with them recently, just realizing how much I do like them and how much, and because when I was kind of doing my notes about them, I was kind of thinking that they did, like, just like you said, they paved the way for almost every rock, heavy metal, grunge, indie, fucking
Hmm.
instrumental, math rock band
Yeah.
ever, and it like what they were doing. That's, you're right. That's what makes it so incredible. What they were doing at that time was they were just like
There
defining
was
music for the
and
next like 50, 60 years, like.
they were so ahead of their time.
And they also had this was something I found out interesting. They had 8 number one hits in Zimbabwe and Switzerland, but
That's
only
wow.
2 in Ethiopia. So
I mean,
absolute shit, really. You know what I mean? Only
what's
2 in
the
Ethiopia.
what's the sort of geographical differences between Zimbabwe and Ethiopia?
I
Are they
mean,
like are they like inherently different
or
people?
maybe I
Like
mean, yeah, maybe they're just more. I mean, would they be like more on the side of Blur than Oasis? You know what I mean? Like these
yeah,
again. This
yeah.
is
I mean, what like were Ethiopians, were they like Mick Jagger fans rather than McCartney fans? Like did they prefer did they prefer Mick Jagger and Keith Richards over Lennon and McCartney? Maybe.
I guess when I get commissioned and when I finally listen when I get picked up and paid by Spotify, I'll go there and I'll ask them. I'll get someone from Ethiopia on the pod and I'll ask them. But yeah, I think it was undeniable that they had to be on there. And I think when I was thinking about, I was trying to think of what my favorite song of theirs was, and I think
Mhm.
I couldn't choose between. I know very generic, but between Let It Be and Come Together, just because, or She's So Heavy, just because
Mhm.
they were just like I don't know. Come
There's just
Together is
like
yeah,
there's just like really great pop songs,
yeah. It's
and I think yeah,
undeniable, like undeniable. And I think I put one sentence where I was like, even if you don't think you like the Beatles, you like the Beatles.
the Beatles, yeah.
It's what I mean. It's undeniable. So first on the list, and what I mean. I think
Not
it was
going anywhere.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah, yeah. The
Beatles.
Beatles. Okay, so I'll go for my next one, right? And I want you to guess what this is. I'm going to try and
Oh,
describe them to
jeez,
you,
right,
right?
okay.
You're going to guess.
This wasn't in
Listen,
my. This wasn't.
this was the
This wasn't in my
contract,
notes.
right? Okay.
Your producer never briefed me on
I know. I
this.
know. Sorry, I'll sack him in the morning. Like, you have you've seen this band multiple times, right? They
Have you
are.
seen this band multiple times?
I haven't, but you have.
You've never seen this band, but I have.
Have I seen them? I think I've seen them once at like T in the park or something like that. But you've seen them multiple times, right? A free piece.
Oh, Blink 182.
Yes. Yeah. I knew it. Listen, like so going in a completely kind of different direction. You know, I think that Blink 182 are they're not only iconic as a band, but just iconic as I know this is going to be very wanky to say, but almost just as like a brand, as it were. You know,
Yeah,
because I think that a defining factor of like a band or an artist that is influential is that even people who claim to not like that type of music or know about it know who they are, would wear a Blink 182 t shirt, would be able to sing if one of their songs comes on like last at a
yeah,
club. And I think that that's where they were just so good at what like they just, kind of kicking off that high energy punk rock, and I'm not saying that they were the first ones to do it by any means, but I think that they're considered a very key group in like the development of like punk
yeah,
pop, of punk pop punk, and like their
yeah.
influences can still be heard. And I mean, for ages, it was like Fallout Boy, All Time Low, like
Hmm.
it was all coming from what they were doing.
Well, there's that. You just mentioned All Time Low. There's an All Time Low music video where All Time Low. It's the song's called Weightless, and in the music video, All Time Low are playing on stage, and the camera pans over to the crowd, and Pete
Oh,
Wentz is standing in the crowd, and a
yeah,
little speech bubble comes out of his mouth saying, "Oh man, All Time Low are such a rip off of Fallout Boy," and then it
yeah,
immediately cuts to Mark Hoppus, who says,
yeah.
Fallout Boy are just a rip off of Blink 182, and I think that yeah, they were essentially, I think, along with bands like Sum 41, they were the soundtrack to the early. the early noughties.
Yeah, yeah,
Between 2000 and probably 2005,
yeah.
Blink 182 were probably the biggest band in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like it, I just think they were, even though their demeanor was obviously again punk rock with kind of like humorous undertones. I think they were very smart as well in terms of like I think they didn't per se shift genres, but when they got to like when they were releasing like something like all the small things, you know, it was accessible. And it's what, to be honest, it was the first things that I heard by them when I was younger, and then that's what pulled me over to then going back and listening to the stuff that was a
Mhm.
lot harder, like
Yeah, because
faster, like
yeah, like the first three records, um, I can't remember the name of the first one, but you had Cheshire Cat and Dude Ranch.
yeah,
I mean, famously, Kerrang gave Dude Ranch a 1 out of 5,
did it?
and and said it's the most unmemorable album I've ever heard. There's no real hooks to it. And
Yeah,
then their next offering, Enema of the State,
yeah.
probably went multi platinum.
Oh well, they've
Because I think
yeah,
they probably did that thing where, because they probably could have continued down that route of kind of more traditional punk,
yeah,
American punk, and in a way, I don't want to say they invented pop punk, because I think in my opinion, Green Day invented pop punk
mm.
with was it Dookie? Dookie was that with them like Basket Case.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so I think, I mean, so if you're counting down the top whatever pop punk albums, I think it would probably go Enema of the State at 2, and then Dookie at number 1.
right.
But both were, but Enema of the State for Blink 182. It's funny how they're both like feces related,
Yeah,
both
yeah,
albums,
yeah.
and I think that sort of really epitomizes
Yeah, a
like
lot of toilet humor.
the pop punk. Yeah, because Enema of the State and Dookie. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah. Like,
toilet humor. Toilet
yeah,
humor. It
but
sold at the time.
it sold, but they also made it bearable. Because to be honest, I'm not really too big into. I think the way that they did it and they did those songs, even though they were a bit ridiculous and they were dumb, they were just really like. I think Tom DeLonge, like the kind of guitar melodies that he wrote, even though they were simple as anything,
Mhm.
they just
I think what like that genre of music really does best is, like, you can't, like, it's got nowhere to hide, if you know what I mean. It's
yeah, 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 yeah. There's not, yeah.
like it is what it is. They know what they are, and they do it brilliantly.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah,
Tom DeLonge knows, and Billy Joe Armstrong know that they're not like virtuoso guitar players, but what they are is a incredible songwriters, and B, like, they know like a riff when they hear one, kind of thing, and they're
oh
also very good. They're also very good, so like stage personas. They're very
oh
good
well,
on
yeah,
stage.
because you have seen. I'm sure you said you've seen them a couple of
I've
times, haven't you?
I've seen them twice. So I saw them in Aberdeen with Tom DeLonge, and oh, sorry, no, I saw them in Glasgow with Tom DeLonge, and then I
Right.
saw them quite recently in Aberdeen
With Matt
with Matt
Skiba.
Skiba.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, pre of Alkaline Trio fame.
yeah, yeah.
Great band, by the way. And again, another, even the three-piece thing, Alkaline Trio were another, obviously a trio.
Yeah.
That sort of bass guitar and drum thing was like that at one point was pop punk. You know what I mean? With
Yeah,
the
I think that making it a free piece, like I think you're going to touch on it, like because they've got nothing to hide behind. I actually think that that is when sometimes the best, when there's sometimes restrictions, that's sometimes when the creativity comes out because obviously, like you said, they've got nothing to hide behind. So you've got obviously bass, guitar, and drums, and you've got to just absolutely flesh out that whole song. You might be able to do maybe an overdub with another guitar, but apart from that,
Mhm.
you've got to just like
And I
you
think
know.
I think what makes Mark Hoppus a fantastic bass player is his ability to make his bass sound like a rhythm guitar.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. He is they're just yeah, I think that it was because when I was thinking about it and I was looking at it, I was like, is this just because I love them so much, or is this because I actually think they are iconic? And I think that there's still acts now that wouldn't be doing what they're doing if Blink hadn't kind of
Yeah,
went and did it, you know. And again, I suppose you could say that for again go back to the Beatles, but so that was my and I mean they sold 50 plus million albums worldwide.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that is outrageous, and even my mum's heard of them, and I think that's a defining factor for me when you know that they're popular. When our mums are like, "Oh, yeah, I've seen that Blink 182. Oh yeah, Joe Boy likes them."
But this is the thing, like like if you're at a karaoke night and
Yeah.
all the small things was an
Oh,
option,
oh,
anybody could sing that, even if they
yeah,
just know the na 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 na
yeah,
na na
exactly.
na na. And I
Yeah.
mean, if that's, I mean that if that's what pop punk is, then
Right. So what? Okay. What's your next? What's your next one? What have you got? What have you got on the
so
menu?
it's really interesting that you've picked Blink 182 because my next one would probably be the band I've chosen here. If they didn't exist, Blink 182 or Green Day or Fall Out Boy wouldn't exist, and that's the Descendants. The Descendants were a punk band from the 80s, and I know they're still going at them now. But they released an album called Milo Goes to College in 1982, and I saw a TikTok a while ago, and it was kind of like this. It was a guy counting down the best sort of pop punk records,
Mm-hmm.
or sort of punk, hardcore punk, pop punk records. And there was bands like Blink, Green Day, A Day to Remember, Fall Out Boy, and The Descendants.
Mm-hmm.
And I commented, I said, if it wasn't for The Descendants, none of these bands would exist. And everyone was like, yeah, for real. That's like, holy shit, that's like,
It's like this guy's onto something here. He
yeah.
knows.
I'm going to go get my guitar because this is where
Oh,
this
oh,
is my.
okay, okay.
A few moments later.
So there's a
Oh,
thing. Can you still hear me?
yeah.
Still hear me?
Yep. Still hear you.
So
There he is.
there's a thing that the Descendants do in their music, which you hear it in pop, you hear it in Blink 182, you hear it in Green Day, and it's that thing where you've got kind of like a just a one note, but then the bass changes over it. So like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
thing, they
yeah.
do it in What's My Age Again? Sorry, I'm not using a plex from here.
Sorry. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? There's that
yeah, 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 yeah.
there's that one note that always stays constant,
Yeah.
but it's that, and I think that if you listen to Milo Goes to College from 1982, you know
Interesting.
what I mean? I don't think Blink 182 released their first record until 1992, so 10 years difference
Yeah,
at least.
yeah,
Um, it's you can hear it's kind of like the Beatles thing. And listen, I'm
yeah.
not saying the Descendants are like the Beatles,
No, he's
but
saying it, everybody. He's saying it. It's on camera. He said it.
um, it's that thing where you go, I've heard that before. I recognise
Yeah,
that. And then you
yeah,
remember this is from the 80s when it was all electronic and big hair and
yeah,
hair metal and
yeah,
Metallica were coming on the scene with Megadeth and Anthrax and
yeah,
Slayer. And then you've got this and the way they looked as well, you could really see the influence that the bands like Blink would go on to take
yeah.
from them. That just that kind of skate punk
Mm,
thing, and their songs are like I remember the first time I listened to them, I was expecting it to be that sort of just hard, fast,
yeah,
shouty, 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 Sex Pistol things,
yeah,
and yes, that is a that is an element of their sound, but it's also very melodic and catchy and things like that as well. So it's
What?
really I'm glad that you said Blink-182 first,
Yeah,
so I can sound really fucking intelligent
yeah,
and come and
yeah.
say, actually, Jack,
You fucking
the
idiot.
Descendants were first.
You fucking moron. Honestly, I'm right. I'm gonna say something that might upset you here. I have see when you said that band, I was like, I have no idea who that is. I have probably heard a song. I've probably heard songs by them, but I honestly, I I couldn't tell you a song. I couldn't tell you anything by them. But I think because especially that you're right, them doing that sort of style or doing that in the 80s. I wonder how it actually. I wonder if it was like a bit of a not a slow burner, but they became more of a cult kind of
Yeah,
following rather. Because I could imagine them releasing at that time, and people would be like, "Nah, nah, no, I'm not big into this." You know what I mean?
they were probably considered underground at the time,
Right.
even
Okay,
at the
okay.
time, and it was they were because they came out of that scene. They were like they recorded in California. They were that sort of beach kind of skate
Right.
punk, San Diego. I think
Yeah,
they
yeah,
because
yeah.
Blink are from San Diego. I think they
Yes,
might
they
be
are.
from
Yeah, I think they are.
San.
Yeah. But that, do you know what? And I'm glad. Like, I'm gonna go give them a listen to actually because, yeah, I've never honestly never. Would you recommend an album? Because I would imagine there's probably a lot of people listening to it as well.
Milo Goes to
That's
College.
Milo goes to college. All right, Milo goes to college. Okay,
Suburban
grand.
Home is their probably their hit from that record.
I'd be interested to hear from our like my mum listening if she's heard of them. You know what I mean,
No,
or
she won't.
anyone who's
I
you know.
think this is the thing. Like, people probably think that Blink 182 and Green Day are the originals of that genre,
Well, I did.
and then
Yeah.
when you go back,
Well,
you've
yeah,
kind of got to pull back the curtain a little bit and
yeah,
actually
yeah.
see. I think because like when you're growing up starting a band, I think the, like your influences are probably not going to be as mainstream as you end up sounding.
Mm.
Like if that makes sense, it's like you start like you start a band because it's almost like this kind of counter culture thing.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like does anybody really like you don't hear of like five guys getting together and starting a boy band, like do you?
No, that's
No, but
like
you hear of four guys who love like this indie Scottish underground band that nobody's ever heard of
yeah,
getting together because they want to sound like that. You know what I mean? Nobody goes and says, "Who's your biggest influence?" One Direction. You go, "Oh, it's this band from here. Here's their cassette." You know what I mean? No, I don't have a cassette.
yeah,
I don't have a cassette player. Well, they only make cassettes. It's
yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. So yeah, you're right.
So
I
I can
think it's
understand. So
yeah,
sorry to come back round to that point was that it's maybe makes sense that you've not heard of the
yeah, no,
Descendants.
yeah, because it's obviously it sounds like the Descendants laid the groundwork, and then
Yeah,
bands like Green Day and Blink kind of I imagine they would have had that influence, took it, and then brought it into like the pop punk kind of
yeah,
style,
yeah,
which sells. You know what I mean?
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
Grand. All right, that's cool. Actually, I'm glad. I wondered if we were going to get any that I hadn't heard of because I know everything, and I didn't know that one. So,
I wonder if
um,
you'll come up with some I've never heard of.
I probably not. Looking at my list, I'm not gonna lie. All right, so the next one. All right, I'm gonna take you back to the 1960s, Joe. All right, referred to as the Queen of Soul. All right, regarded
Stop making me
as
guess.
I mean, it's fun. Regarded as the most influential female vocalist of the 1960s and probably ever. Really, I would say.
Whitney Houston?
No. That's about 20 years too late on that one, I think. Or I think she was like 80s, 90s.
Too early. Just
So
go and
she
tell me.
no. She Um, okay, it's Aretha Franklin,
Aretha Franklin. Okay.
right? Rolling Stone 2010 named her as the number one greatest singer of all time. And I'll be honest, again, I had a bit of a kind of like Beatles syndrome with Aretha Franklin where I know who Aretha Franklin is. I could tell you 2 or 3 songs. Would I sit there and say to you that I listen to Aretha Franklin every day or even every year? No. Like I
No.
couldn't say that to you. But when I was having a little skulk around on my laptop doing my research, it was it was undeniable the influence that Aretha Franklin had on like just like vocalists pretty much. You
Hmm.
know, like
And also probably being a mainstream like black
well yeah,
artist
well that's
as
see
well.
that's she is again another thing that I love about her and I think it also makes her incredibly influential is that she was like a civil rights and women's rights activist, you know, provided money for civil rights groups, performed at protests, and she was also this is something that I find really interesting as well. She was like like a low key kind of support of Native American rights. Like she wasn't it wasn't as outspoken as her civil rights and women rights activism, but she was doing it without not that she was needing the recognition for the civil rights, the women rights stuff, but she was doing that alongside it. And you know, I think
I
she
didn't know
just
that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
well, that was the thing, and I find that really interesting. And I think that it's that example of obviously, you know, being you know an African American woman in the '60s. You know what I mean? She, even though she was one of the most famous women in the world, famous acts in the world, she still would obviously, you know, experience that racism and sexism. And despite, you know, being one of the most talented and like naturally gifted like performers and singers in like history. And I think when you think about that she had that to also come up against, you know what I mean? It wasn't just a case of like that she had the X Factor and you could go on and just do that. She
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
literally battling against like you know there was it was at a time when there were certain bars and pubs where like she could maybe perform at, but she couldn't like go and have a drink afterwards.
And they
You know what
probably
I mean?
wouldn't, they wouldn't pay her. They wouldn't pay her or
Oh,
something. Yeah, I know.
exactly, and it
I
like
always, I always think it's like it's a strange one for me to sort of get my head around. Like when you like these black artists at that time, they still had like the fame and notoriety,
mm,
and white people still wanted to go and see them. But it was like,
not be associated with them. You know,
yeah,
like
it was like, oh, we'll take your we'll take in your culture and we'll all that kind of thing, but we'll not like respect you. I don't know. It was almost like they were taking, but they
oh
weren't
yeah,
prepared to like to sort of treat them as equals and sort of give back and
oh
sort of
yeah,
really appreciate. It was just like, yeah, I don't know. I find it difficult how they could say how they could go and watch like Aretha Franklin perform, but the very next day, like turn their nose up at a black person in the street.
yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. That
Very,
yeah.
very, very sort of like hypocritical in that
Oh
sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's and I went and watched like a few kind of like live kind of things on YouTube as well because I just wanted to sit and like have a listen to it and I was just like
Mhm.
I always again one of those things I always knew she was good and I always knew that she was obviously you know one of the most but I didn't realize just how like incredible she was and you know what I mean until actually I went and proper looked and I was like holy shit like
Mm.
this is why she's obviously considered. And I mean, she sold like 75 million copies of her album. Do you know what I mean? Like that is a ludicrous amount, and that's not. I don't think that's even taken into consideration like the downloads nowadays. And she won like 18 Grammys. And
Mhm.
my favorite thing about her, right? Apart from all this, all the activism, all the money she right, my favorite thing about her was that she refused one of the many acts to refuse to perform at Trump's inauguration.
Ah, there you go.
So
Brilliant.
if she wasn't already an incredible, you know, musician, incredible human being, you know, she
There
went
you
and
go.
stuck it up that big orange balloon, and that is because I think she passed away in 2018. I think it wasn't too
Yeah, does
long
she?
ago.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like that. That probably one of the last kind of things that she, like I bet if that's the last thing you're going out with, like refusing to perform for Trump, I think that's
Trump. Yeah, that's quite a
that's
way to
quite a
go.
quite a message, and so. And I think I was trying to think about what my kind of favorite song by her was, and I was listening. I was listening to "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman," and I was like, "This fucking." I know. I was like, "This
So yeah,
slaps."
yeah, you do, Aretha.
Yeah, you. But it's just I like it because it is a song about empowerment, and
And how many times has that song probably been covered?
oh, listen, mate, you could walk down the street and you'll hear it. You know what I mean? Like some busker going for it. So so I felt like one of those acts that I kind of want to explore more, like in my own time, but it was
Yeah,
undeniable that I couldn't like
absolutely.
skip past it. You know what I mean? So that is my next
Well,
one. So what
great
what are you
choice.
what are you throwing at us? What you got next?
Well, I've got a fair list, but I think I'm at the next artist. And this is a solo artist now.
Oh, oh,
Um, Round in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, up until his death in 2016, tragic death. Uh, David Bowie or Bowie.
yeah,
I think it's Bowie. I say
yeah. We'll
Bowie.
say Bowie. I'd say Bowie. Yeah, I'd say Bowie.
Um, I remember when he died. I was sitting in my work in the canteen, and an older guy. He was on the news, and an older guy who possibly lived through the 60s and 70s turned to me and said he allowed boys, males, to break out of
Mhm.
this stringent mold that was probably expected of them
Yeah.
at that time, and allowed them to be themselves,
Hmm.
to express themselves, whether that was their sexuality or whatever. He kind of paved the way because obviously he would wear makeup, he would maybe wear a dress,
Hmm.
or like what I mean, just like these really sort of extravagant outfits and things like that. He allowed other males at that time to really sort of fight back against that sort of like the sort of authority figures of the time. Whether it would be like the, the demon headmaster. What I mean, would want all boys to have a short back and sizing with a tie
Yeah, yeah,
up the two. Or their dads that wanted them to. What I mean,
yeah.
yeah, they allowed opened the door for people to really express themselves and sort of become who they felt that they were at that time.
Oh yeah. And have you
And
have you ever?
and I think as well how that whole message
Yeah.
defines the 60s and maybe and the 70s as well.
Yeah, like have you seen that interview he does with MTV? I think it's in the well, it must be in the '90s because MTV, and he's talking to them about, and he asks, it's kind of like so the interview's been filmed, but the camera's still kind of going, and it's kind of like a post. I don't know, I didn't really watch MTV, but and he asks, like, he says to, like, "Can I ask you a question?" Like the reporter, the person working for MTV, was like, "Yeah, sure," and he was asking them about like why is there not more representation of like African Americans on MTV, and like it was, and at the time they're like it was like there wasn't enough, or it was almost seen as
Mhm.
like a bit of a token gesture, you know what I mean? Or it was,
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah.
and the way that he kind of, and you know what, the way he asked, he wasn't being like aggressive. He was just genuinely like, he was having the kind of conversation with the reporter, and
David Bowie asked this
yes,
question.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Um, and it just seemed like, and then he was taking kind of a back and forth with the reporter, and it was like giving him, and he was trying to giving education about it. You know, I mean, obviously, as much as he can, because he's not an African American man, but he obviously was someone who was, you know, believed in obviously, you know, civil rights and was, you know,
So
an ally.
how did the reporter answer that question?
He he kind of like kind of ratted his way through it a little. You know what I mean? Was just kind of like talking about how far MTV had come since, you know,
Right. Yeah.
instead of, you know, and then trying to obviously put the positive kind of spin on it. And again, I think because Bowie then, he wasn't saying an awful lot back to him, was doing that whole, the reporter them as men making feel like he had to say more and more and more. And Bowie was just kind of, it was almost like he was letting him just like, you know, and that is a more maybe effective way of, you know,
Yeah.
probably
Let-
shaming that company for not, you know.
just letting them dig their hole.
Well, that's the thing, and he was so calm and like collective and cool about it. And I think I just remember that video was like circulating also when he died and stuff, and I just remember watching, and because I almost put Bowie in my list, and I just missed out. But I love some of my earliest memories listening to like David Bowie in the car with like my mum and dad driving, maybe like
Yeah.
women or something like that. And like I remember when I listened to Ziggy Stardust for the first time, and then I got my first electric guitar, and my dad had his idea of like Ziggy Stardust was like the epitome of what you could play on the guitar, just because of obviously how iconic. And he was like, if you could, you know, he'd be steaming, he'd have
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
if you could play the guitar like that, hey, that's it. That's it. That's guitar. I'm like, you're right. That is guitar.
Yeah. Yeah. And similarly on that, I remember my dad would often. I'd maybe be sitting at the computer with my guitar, and my dad would
Yeah,
come up behind me, and he would go and learn such and such. And
yeah.
it was Rebel Rebel
Oh,
by
banger,
Bowie.
banger.
Great song.
Oh,
Um, yeah. So like
just
a really like talented musician as well, guitar player,
oh yeah,
songwriter.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you talk about the way that he shifted, not maybe not genre, well, yeah, I suppose genre, or he would change what he was doing. Like he would go from that kind of rock and roll to then kind of
Some a bit more electronic
funkier, kind of like
sounding.
disco,
Yeah,
electronic.
yeah.
I mean, he did like a big project with like Brian Eno that was very like atmospheric, kind of ambience or stuff. And yeah, super talented. And yeah,
I mean, because what's the one? Is it Just Dance or Let's Dance? Let's Dance.
yeah, just dance. Yeah, it's Let's Dance. Yeah, it's Let's Dance. Let's
Let's Dance. I
Dance.
mean,
That's what
yeah,
sampled. Like,
that's a brilliant like funk disco record.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It like just absolutely superb. I'm kind of. I wish I'd put. I knew that you would probably have him in there. Like, so I did, but he. And my mum and dad have seen him like 2 or 3 times as well. So back in the day when our parents could just go and see like anyone, they'd be playing it like they'd be playing at the Carnoustie Bowls Club, and it'd be like bloody the Rolling Stones. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Like
oh, and the
like
ticket was
what
it was a tenner.
£1.50.
I know it was tenner. It was bloody expensive. I'll tell you that much. And you're like, great. Like it's like £90 to see Ed Sheeran, but like
And the
not even
tickets
really
sell.
see him.
I know, and they sell out in like 90 seconds.
Yeah, but no, I think that's beautiful. I was so sad when genuinely one of those ones when a celebrity died, and I was like, that is very sad. Like that I felt that I
And
felt that, you know.
he was even influential in like celebrity deaths because he kicked off that horrendous
Oh,
year
that year,
of
yeah, 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 yeah.
2016 where like everybody died.
He set the standard, you know.
he was the first. He was the
Yeah.
first one of that year, I believe.
Right, so at the moment we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 5. So we'll be able to.
Halfway
Well,
there.
yeah, we're halfway there. So my next one. All right, let's play this game again, Joe. Let's play this game again. All right, heavy band formed in 1995. Um, they've sold 30 million records. They're famous. They have a music video where they were just, I think they got like sued so badly because so many people got injured because they basically just
Oh,
invited.
Slipknot.
Yes. like that. What song is it? Duality. It was for
Duality, yeah.
or whatever one it was, and they invited like they just did an open invitation to like thousands of fans. Were
One of the craziest music videos I've
like you
ever
know when
seen
the
in my
boy
life.
just falls through the fucking roof. I'm like Joey Johnson's just playing, and the boy just like falls, and he's just kind of like he's like looking at
It's
the rest of the band.
absolute.
He's like, "Oh my goodness." Okay,
I
that's
mean, did anybody die in the film
I
like
don't.
that?
Nobody died, but I think they got like hefty sued, hefty fined, like
Legal action,
breaching. I
yeah.
mean, breaching just like the every single health and safety
Health and
act. Like,
safety regulation. Yeah.
I just imagine their little manager just like sitting there, just in the corner of the.
Do you remember the health and safety officer at Perth College? She would have had like a brain
She
hemorrhage
would.
if she saw that.
She loves health and safety that much. She gave us that talk twice in the same week. Carbon copy of the same
I
talk.
was. We're going really off track here, but I
It's fine.
was thinking about her the other day. Actually,
Oh, were you? Oh, no.
not that. I was speaking to somebody about her. I can't remember. Yeah, but and yeah. In terms of health and safety,
But in terms of
that was
music,
like, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I
So sorry.
no, that's so. I think in regards to, I know I've kind of went mostly with kind of bands and stuff, but like I think I couldn't get away from Slipknot because I know there's a lot of acts that you could probably find, and you even spoke about one of them. They're like Metallica or Megadeth, who like defined obviously getting music really heavy. I mean, the Beatles are even considering that because the music they were doing at the time was considered like heavy. You know what I mean? Like for what was like going on, the themes they were talking about. But like, I think the reason that I thought of Slipknot as just being so influential was because I felt like they were that bridge, particularly for me. Like I wasn't
Mm,
always like into heavy music. They were that bridge for me from
totally. Yeah.
to then going into that genre and then starting to find stuff that like initially I'd be like, that's too heavy for me. I don't like that. That's just not like or like a band like Architects, for example, who I fucking love. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. Like I would never have went to them if I didn't go through Slipknot first.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah,
Like, and I think
and
they've
it's similar to that Blink-182 thing of like they took something and in a sense made it more accessible.
yeah, because their music is like I think it's like from the offset. Again, I'll use my mum as because she's listening to this, and maybe your mum is too. Hi, Vicky. Like when they think about heavy music, right? Or they're like talking about how much they dislike how heavy music is, or they're like, oh, I don't like that screaming music. They'll always know to say Slipknot. You know what I mean? That and
Slipknot, it's
it's
like
that's the
it's
like the example of like that
it,
is
it was the it was like the go-to for like the school bully.
yeah
Oh,
yeah
you're a mosher, go and cut your wrists and listen to Slipknot. It
yeah
was
well
that
that
kind of. They
yeah
sort of became that cliche, didn't they?
yeah and I think that is again just another reason of how they were just so such a mainstream. Again, and I think now because the thing is, there's heavy music that we listen to now that makes Slipknot seem very mellow. You know what I mean? Compared, like there's
But
some
the thing,
stuff.
but I also think that and obviously just through the passing of time, Slipknot have become slightly more dad rock
Oh
than
yeah.
they once
That like
were. You know, I
yeah. I
mean,
think listen, they're getting up in their 40s and 50s. Their bloody knees can't. That bloody clown that carries around a barrel, like he can't be smashing that about the
he
place.
and you're joking about that, but I actually think he suffers severe carpal tunnel.
Listen, like
That's
he
what I think he does. I think he has real problems with his arms and
I think
wrists
he's
from.
actually one of the because they were formed originally. Obviously, R.I.P. Joey Jordison because that was only a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? That he
Yeah,
died,
yeah.
which
So
was
sad.
very sad, very sad, and Paul Gray as well. Jesus, because
Mm.
the original members were Joey Jordison, Paul Gray, and then Sean Crahan, the percussionist, who I think is one of the clowns or the one with the big dildo nose or whatever. I don't know.
There's that
Yeah.
one.
And they formed in 1995. Like I didn't realize, they seem like such an early 2000s band for me. But obviously, they would have needed to have kind of come up from somewhere. But yeah, I think that, and obviously sold tons.
They probably broke the mainstream in
Oh
the
yeah,
early
yeah. Well,
nineties.
I would imagine that they were getting singles that were getting into that, like the UK top 100, hot 50,
Yeah,
getting into that when everything else around them was like JLS and like what I mean, like stuff like that, and they were just
yeah,
and the fucking honestly. So Psychosocial is I think that's my favorite song, like that or like Sick. But I think Psychosocial, the breakdown in Psychosocial is so filthy that it beautiful. Like it's just
yeah. I think, but even I think that that's one of their tamer
well, it is tame, but like just
numbers. Yeah,
I think
you compared to like
because
some of their earlier stuff.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But like I think when you strip back, you actually realize that they're a group of like incredible musicians. Like the core group of
Yeah.
them are
So
like
like I was going to touch on that. I think he is probably considered the lead guitarist, Mick Thompson.
yeah, oh
He
yeah, yeah.
is
Is he the
he's
big
a
dude, the really
phenomenal.
big dude with like the
He's got
long
the
hair?
guitar and the guitar has 7 written on the neck.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
He I think he does like jazz lessons and things like that.
Yeah,
He
oh
gives
yeah,
jazz
yeah.
lessons.
Well, I think you've got. Whenever I've known anyone that is really good in metal, like people that we've kind of they have that understanding of like music theory that you need to
Yeah.
kind of have to be able to like.
It's an incredibly difficult genre
Oh
to
yeah,
play.
yeah, and I think that it's then when my mum, sorry mum, I'm dragging you into this a lot. When she sits and batters them, I'm like, you have no idea. Listen, Christine, right? You have
Yeah,
no
yeah.
idea how hard these boys work to make this work. I was like, they are, and I always wonder what the writing process is like. Like, do they
For
have all the
bands like yeah, so do
clowns?
I.
Do they have all the clowns in the room? Do they have barrels in the room, or is it just like I would imagine? There's like the core 4 or 5 of them. The ones that are
Yeah,
like the 2 guitarists, bass player,
yeah.
singer, drummer, and then the rest of them. They'll bring them in once they've actually started doing the most important stuff,
Yeah, they probably just come in for like the recording, but
or like the live show. They're just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's your
And
barrel,
you
Bill.
and you and do you think like do you think like the because I think they refer to him as an urban percussionist. That is his official job
So
title.
a barrel hitter.
An urban percussionist. Do you think he takes the same cut as like what's the
Interesting.
lead singer? What's the lead
Oh,
singer's name again?
oh, bloody, what is his name?
It's just gone right out of my mind.
That's gone. Corey
There'll be
Taylor.
something.
Is it
Corey
Corey
Taylor,
Taylor? Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Corey
yeah.
Taylor. Do you think? Because obviously,
Yeah,
do
that's
you think they
interesting.
all get? Do you think they all get an equal share of the
I
barrel?
like. I mean that they're like in their meeting with the business, like they're cut the contract. That boy's like, I have hit that barrel like 80 times a night for the last 2 years. Right, my arm is basically my arm is brittle. Like I want, like
I want
I
my
want
20%.
compensated. I want
Yeah,
compensated. And then, but I suppose that's what happens. You have to split it between like 7 or 8 of them, or however bloody
it's
many of them there
crazy.
are. But
Yeah,
yeah, so that I mean, I guess that's why I could put them in there. I know that there's again, you could put Metallica in there for like that, in terms of like being pioneers of like heavy metal and like metal and stuff. But I think I swayed for Slipknot because of how they bridged. And then when we're talking about influential, I think in terms of
yeah.
like pop culture,
I
that
agree.
you know,
I think, yeah. Just in terms of like bringing that style of music into the mainstream. Just when we started discussing Slipknot, you know, Slipknot are that band that people call on
yeah,
when referring to that.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
genre, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
John. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's like yeah, they kind of yeah. There was obvious bands before them like Metallica and in the 80s, but I think although Metallica are a huge band,
oh yeah, yeah,
I think they're not that kind of like I feel like my like somebody's mum and dad might still not quite have heard of Metallica, but they'll definitely know Slipknot.
Yeah. And again, I bet there's people listening to this right now that are just like screaming, just like we're wearing their Metallica jumpers and just like
Yeah,
sending me letters and stuff, and you know, like. But do you know what? I don't care because
don't care.
don't care.
It's
I
not
don't
their
care what.
podcast.
Yeah, that's it. If they want to come on, come on.
They
Don't have
could
to pay
literally
me.
be your. They could literally be your guest and come
They could
on.
be my guest and tell me how wrong and ugly and awful I am, and I'll sit and listen to it as long as they pay me. you know. um. So yeah, there's Slipknot. There's Slipknot for you. All right, right. What have
That's
you?
the boys.
What
That's
have
the
you? What?
boys in Slipknot. Well, my next one was actually going to be Metallica,
Oh,
but
oh.
I'm not going to go down that route because I think
Mm-hmm.
we've bashed out thrash metal from
Yeah.
thrash metal to new metal
Mhm.
for long enough now. So the next ensemble that I'm going to go from my satchel of options is
Sorry. All right, open up your
what?
satchel. Show me what's in it. Let's see.
I'm going to go for Kraftwerk, the
Huh?
German
Is
the,
that a beer?
the German electronic. There's four of them from the 70s, and they were almost probably the first popular musicians to popularize electronic music.
Interesting.
So I was I was going down the route of EDM, electronic dance music, and every kind of article that I looked at cited Kraftwerk, Kraftwerk, Kraftwerk. They're German. They're German. They're a German band.
yeah.
Um, sorry,
No,
formed
it
it.
was fun. Sorry, go on. Sorry, I'll cut
And they
myself
were
out.
so they were from I think they formed in in 1969, and then they had their first record out in the 70s.
Mm,
And I think what was really unique about them at the time was it was more the technology that they were using to create
right.
these pop songs,
Mm,
um, as opposed to the actual songs themselves. Um, but yeah, they like I said, every article that I sort of was looking at in regards to like EDM, trance, dance music, it was really they said Kraftwerk were the sort of founding fathers, if you like.
mm.
And you know what? I'm looking at you and I'm thinking you've not heard of this band, have you?
I have not. I can confirm.
So, but you will. So I'm going to hum you a tune, and
Okay.
you will know the tune. It's the one that goes do 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 do
Oh
do
yeah,
do
is that
do
them?
do. Yeah,
Oh, well,
it's
I'll be
called. It's
damned.
called. So I think the English version is just called the model, but the German is das Model. Do 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 do. But I think what was really cool about them was that like Germany in the 70s was obviously a very divided
Yes.
country. 60s,
Yes.
70s, after the Second World War, and their music is really like it really encapsulates that. Like when I think of Germany in the 60s and 70s and probably in the 80s as well, I picture this like really like industrial
Yeah.
kind of factories, like plumes of smoke all over the place. You know what I mean? Just this like
Yeah.
really kind of like just and that's what their music is. Like it's just like really robotic, industrial kind of sounding, clanking. Dum, 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 you know what I mean? You could like imagine the steel workers of Frankfurt. But no, but you're
yeah,
laughing, but
yeah.
that's
No,
like
I know. Yeah. No, you're and because I mean, when I feel like Germany do seem to be kind of pioneers of like electronic music. Like it seems to be that. I mean, they're seen like when I was in Berlin. it was everywhere. You just listen. You couldn't get away from the electronic
Well,
music.
but
It was
that's the thing.
following us about like it was.
It's that discotheque. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? That kind of thing.
you want to come in
Um,
and hear some discotheque? Come on.
but that's the thing, and you would probably go into one of those clubs and you would hear about 10 Kraftwerk songs.
Oh yeah, like it's very interesting. Like you like
But yeah, I think what really they paved the way for like the use of. I know that like technology was being used like before that, but they paved the way for like the technology being like the soul,
yeah.
the core of like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't just like recording through like an analog synth or whatever. Like like the synth was the main instrument kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing of like they weren't the first to do it, but the way that they did do it,
They were the
like kind of
first.
like that
Yeah.
that way that like what Hendrix did
Like
with like the guitar, you know what I mean? Like
they didn't invent the synthesizer, but the way they used it was pretty revolutionary.
yeah, very interesting. Yeah, honestly I feel I mean for all those listening, me and Joe we actually have degrees in music, honors degrees actually. Sorry, which we worked really hard to get,
Well, you
and
did anyway.
um, but I genuinely, and I feel kind of, but then I suppose I don't. Yeah, I suppose you don't know everything, do you? Even though I do.
No,
Um, very
but the thing
interesting.
is, you knew that tune,
Oh yeah. I think
so
everyone that we've said so far has, even if you don't know their songs in quotes, you know of their influence because of
yeah.
other art. And that again, that's why they're making such an incredible list. I'm sure they're all going to be buzzing that they're on. You know what I mean? Like, well, the ones that are live anyway.
Yeah.
Like, probably about four of them that are live. But like, um, all right, okay, I'm going to get this one out the way because
How many, was this number 8?
what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so on number 8, I'm so I'm going to get this one out the way because I feel a bit dirty putting it in, but I, I can't deny it, Joe. I can't deny that Oasis are influential. Right? I know. Listen, you're looking at me with your face and your eye just bloody rolling your eyes. For everyone who can't see the video, he's rolling his eyes at me. Honestly, he's getting paid millions to be on this fucking podcast, rolling his eyes at me.
I'm gonna say one thing, and I'll let you take
Oh,
the
thank you.
reins on this one. I don't think Liam Gallagher or Noel Gallagher has ever had an original idea in their entire life.
Okay, well that's good. So carrying on from that, right. So I feel like I'm gonna be fighting for them here. Right. Whether you love them or you hate them, their influence on pop culture. And I'm actually gonna say more on actual
What? Just like boys that get the haircut and wear the jacket.
no, but I know that listen, I know that sounds like something that's daft, but do you know how big a thing it is to literally like influence people to
I know.
dress,
Yeah.
act, and do stuff a certain way? Even though most like I'm not saying for all of them, but for a lot of them, that subculture is I'm not a fan. But the ability to have that influence over like that's like you know what I mean a section like to create a subculture of that where and
Yeah.
where and listen we have all used this again us as because we were in a band and we would have seen bands and we will have all of us used that line of saying oh they're just like an Oasis cover band kind of thing, you know what I mean, and it's
Yeah.
because and it's a similar vein to Slipknot, it's the easiest kind of you know marker to put to like towards it and
I
people
know what you mean. Yeah. Yeah.
and people these guys they want to be Oasis, like they want to be them, you know what I
So that
mean?
was good. That was going to be my point. It was like, yeah, I think that is an issue because I think people who like Oasis and they start bands, they don't want to be. When you try incredibly hard to be exactly like your idols or whatever,
Mm.
people can see through that. I
Yeah,
think, and I
yeah,
think that I'll see whenever we play gigs, I'll see like you just said there. We'll be watching a band and we'll go. Well, they just wish they were Oasis.
yeah,
They're not necessarily taking their influence from Oasis and trying to make it their own. They're just trying to be Oasis.
yeah. And I think that
And
that
and listen, and that's like, yeah, you're right. Like that, Oasis have had a huge influence on people. Guys want to be they want to be Liam Gallagher
yeah,
or Joe Gallacher, so they go and get the haircut. It's like you know what I mean. It's like when I don't know if you ever saw this, but a member of One Direction once got braces, so hordes of One
yeah.
Direction fans also
Oh
went and
god,
got
yeah.
braces. Like what's the difference between that and a 28-year-old going and getting that stupid haircut with the sideburns
At least in the
and
One Direction one, they're promoting oral
good, good,
health. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Whereas
So
what Oasis, what they were promoting was just like, just go and be an
park,
idiot. Like,
yeah.
but and taking it back to the music, right? I know that I get, and I hear what you're saying about they've not had an original idea, right?
That was
Okay,
maybe a bit over the top.
right, but there's some songs, and it's very similar in sense to thinking about the moment of karaoke or a song coming on,
Hmm.
like don't look back in anger, right? When that I guarantee, and you'll have been in a bar or club, maybe a few shandies deep, and you'll have been absolutely crying your
Belting
heart
out.
out singing it. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
because it is an incredible song. Like I can't listen, Joe. I can't sit here like and say to you that that's not an incredible piece of songwriting.
That's like fun. That's a great song, but it's also the Beatles from 1966. Like
Is
like
it though?
we said at the start, it is. Yeah, it is.
Is it though?
I would say it is. Yeah.
Like I think again as well, there's a lot of sentimental things for me as well because I think I hit a stage in high school where I really loved Oasis. I wasn't dressing like them, but I loved the music and me like my
Yeah.
dad.
Listen,
We went to see them in their the last time they played Scotland, and we're talking about some of the greatest gigs we've ever been to. That was sensational. Even though,
listen. You
yeah,
can't deny the influence that they've had on the culture
yeah,
of Britain
and Britpop
since the
as well.
90s.
You know what I mean? Britpop indie, like
Britpop.
it's
It's yeah. I mean, it's essentially their own genre that
yeah.
they've sort of coined.
So even though it's not all positive, and there are, I can totally understand the negative connotations towards Oasis, people not liking Oasis. It's then at a point that it's still undeniable that that influence they had on culture.
Yeah,
And it's not all
I
been
remember I
positive,
saw.
but
Yeah, I remember I saw. Is it what was Liam Gallagher's band BDI?
yeah, they're shite.
I saw them. They were at Tea in the Park, and the type of person they attract
Yes, yeah, yeah.
is less than savoury,
Yeah,
shall
yeah,
we say?
and also I really don't like how Noel Gallagher is turning into like a really bitter old man who loves shitting on anything. I think my point was when he like was shitting on Lewis Capaldi, and I was like, why are you shitting on him? Like, even if you don't think his music's
It's
that great, just fucking like just leave
shut
him.
up. Yeah,
Like, shut up.
listen. Yeah, that's
And
yeah, yeah.
and then Lewis, I think when Lewis Capaldi then just like ripped the piss out of him and came on with like a Noel Gallagher like face mask on
And
at
he,
like
and you
Tea in
had
the
that
Park.
you had that you had that interview on the big screen as well.
Yeah, that and again that was perfect. So I'm sorry I had to put them in there, but there it is. Do with that what you will. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, next choice, another band from the 90s, while Oasis and Blur were battling it out for the top spot in Britain, there was another trio across the pond doing their own thing. And that was Nirvana.
Vanna, yep. Already written down
Nirvana.
before you said it, mate. Knew it. I've got them too, by the
You knew it
way.
was coming. Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
fine.
I've got them
Yeah,
too.
well, I think
Love them.
again, it's a similar theme we've come across. Not necessarily the first.
Mm.
Well, actually, I would maybe say that the grunge thing,
Of Generation X, they're probably
yeah, that
that.
came out of Seattle.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were probably ground zero, if you
yeah,
like. Um, just that sound of like, again, it's quite coincidental. I saw a TikTok. It was Cobain's guitar part from Heart Shaped Box,
yeah,
isolated, and it was just this like. It sounded like he was playing his very first
yeah.
Squire through a tiny little Blues Junior or
Like a
something,
handset radio or something. Like he's
turned up to 9,
yeah,
just like kicking the fuck out of the amp.
yeah.
Um, it was just this like really kind of, and like people were like in the comments like, "How does he get that sound? How does he get that sound?" And you could be like, just
Just like
plug
plug it
in
into
with
a child's amplifier. You know what I mean? And
with
just
a, with a dodgy lead.
yeah, yeah.
um, and I think that really, and I think you remember that Excerpts album,
A great band as well, by
the
the way. For anyone listening, fucking
yeah,
listen to the excerpts. Like incredible band,
it's not
incredible
not
band.
the not the most recent one, the one before it, the one with
Oh, the one with like the greatest album of all time.
Sh-
Yeah.
Shaking in the Water was on.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's a track on that album, and there's like they do this wee guitar solo. It's like
Yeah,
a
I know
poignant
exactly.
little
Meh,
guitar
meh,
solo,
meh, meh, meh. Oh, what
and
was that one again?
it's like Kevin Spacey or something. It's called no.
Oh, I know exactly which song you're talking about, and I know
But it's
exactly what
funny.
part you're
It's
talking about.
yeah,
'Cause we used to make
and
fun of it. I remember us making fun of
it's
it, being like how shite
it
it
sound
sounded.
it sounds like he's playing like his old Epiphone
Yeah,
through like a tiny wee Squire amp
but it
with like
works. You know
the
what I
little
mean?
distortion button
Yeah,
pressed,
yeah.
the little crunch button pressed.
But it works so
Um,
well.
it's just and I think that was like Nirvana's sound. It was this like big fuck you to
Yeah,
like the sort of polished rock of the 80s
yeah,
and maybe early 90s. And
yeah.
I remember watching a documentary. It was like about Oasis and Blur in the 90s. And I think my dad turned to me and went, "Who do you prefer, Joe, Oasis or Blur?" And I went, "Nirvana."
Did he? He's like, get the
Uh,
fuck out! Like,
he was like, "Shut up, Joe, shut up." um,
throws a slipper
like
at
they
you.
like Yeah, I know. Don't be a dick. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, I feel like for me, Nirvana were like the biggest band of the 90s.
yeah, yeah.
And I think Kurt Cobain is one of the most renowned musicians of all time.
Oh, yeah. And listen, how many? I don't think I've went a day in my life, maybe at the most 2 days, without seeing someone wearing a
Like
Nirvana shirt
yeah.
with a smiley, and you know what I mean. I mean, I've got one in the washing, but I wore it in the last Billy podcast. You know what I mean? Like, and
And like
the
I'm starting to see people now with like the plaid shirt tied around their waist,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
cap
yeah,
cap on backwards with like a vest, with like the denim cutoffs
yeah,
and boots, like going about pet like that's like fashion
yeah.
is coming back
He also
with like the
was,
long hair.
yeah, he is so handsome as well. Like Kurt
Good,
Cobain is
good looking guy. Yeah,
when you actually see, he is like, if I could just, if you walked into a room, you'd just be like, that is a handsome fella. That is a,
so
and he's like all three of them as well, just so talented and just they they knew what they knew what they were, and they just absolutely, you know, they weren't changing it for anyone. They're like, this is, this is what it is. And I always really like, I love Kurt Cobain's like shitty little solos in his songs because it always replicates the
Yeah.
choral vocal melody that he does. Like
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, it's sort of like in Heart Shaped Box, it's like the chorus melody, and
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, and
it's
then
simple. And
smells like Teen Spirit. Yeah.
if someone tried to do that right now, I'd be like, that sounds awful. But they just like, and yeah, I mean, I had them on my list. As well. I was going to do them after Oasis to try and redeem myself. But like Nevermind
But
sold
yeah,
30 million alone, like 30 million
and
fucking copies. Like,
I think like Nirvana paved the way for like the sort of new metal scene of
yeah,
like the late 90s into 2000s. Now, whether you like, I wasn't really that big on new metal, and I kind of thought it
no,
was a bit of bit of a bastardization of grunge,
yeah,
but it like you could hear it, and then obviously that maybe moved into the sort of pop punk thing,
mhm.
but that kind of just that sort of heavy guitar, you can hear it like in music today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like absolutely undeniable. Undeniable. Fucking oh god, I love Nirvana so much. I didn't get into them as early. Like I probably was about 15 when I really started like
Mhm.
really, really liking them. Which is,
There was
but
a,
you know
there was a
what?
time there was a time when I was really into Nirvana and Green Day at the same
Yeah.
time.
Which is, do you know what? Which is also fine. I think it is totally fine to get into music. It doesn't matter.
When you
Like
get into that, when
whenever
you get
you
into
want
that,
to. And I think
when
there
it
was a
happens, it happens. Yeah,
And I think there was a lot of, particularly if you go to like music uni or college, and there's a lot of people who it's like they thrust stuff. I would say they thrust stuff upon you. They thrust opinions on you, and it then has a negative effect on you of like going and listening to what they're saying because it's in a. I think
yeah.
there's one or two people that we both know that I think we're quite suspect of that. That I think we probably both know who they are, and
We know who we're talking about.
okay, okay.
Okay, last one.
Moving on to the next one. Do you know what? I'm going to quickly. And do you know what? It's my podcast, so I can do what I want. I'm going to quickly offer up two options. All right,
Okay.
and just to make it tasty, because that would make 11 options, and then we have to decide which one gets cut. All right, just to
All
make
right.
it
Okay.
tasty. I'll go through the two of them quickly, as quickly as I can. All right. So first one, kind of spoke a little bit about him already. Big Jimmy Hendrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Changed guitar playing in terms of
Playing totally.
his utilization of a distorted electric guitar is iconic, and it was crucial for the development of like modern guitar playing. He wasn't the first to play with distortion, right? He wasn't the first one to like turn distortion on a Marshall amp and just go nuts on it. But the way he used it, kind of similar to what you're saying about that German band, how they weren't just using it as a tool, they were using it as the actual.
Sort of main element
It
of
was
their
almost an
sound.
instrument within itself, that the distortion, and like
Yeah,
you know
yeah, and he absolutely like if our image, if Coca Cola created our image of Santa Claus, then
yeah.
Jimi Hendrix created our image of the electric guitar.
Oh
He
yeah,
like the way we look at the electric guitar and the way that it's portrayed in popular culture now is thanks to Jimi
yeah,
Hendrix. If it
yeah.
wasn't for Jimi Hendrix, Fender Guitar Studios would still be a tiny little,
Oh yeah,
you know what I
like
mean,
I mean,
Lutheran in California.
yeah, like I think the thing I love about him is that you can appreciate him as someone who isn't a guitarist, right? You can appreciate him as like, wow, that is incredible guitar playing, and then even as a guitarist, you can appreciate like his songwriting and his ability and like
Mm.
how bold he was being with his guitar playing. Because I remember someone again that we know, I think, having a conversation with, and again, you can like and dislike whatever you want as long as it's not problematic. But talking about how if I was a guitar teacher actually that we had talking about how Hendrix was like a sloppy player, right? And because of and it infuriated me because I was like, what, he's sloppy because he's not doing like a perfect like minor fucking pentatonic like
I
run
think, but I
there over
think,
chords, like like
I think what that person maybe meant was like his sound was he was like deliberately sloppy. Like he was okay, maybe not deliberately sloppy, but he was like that was his the way he got around the neck of the guitar was obviously not like classically
it was efficient.
sort of
That's what it
yeah,
was. It was
yeah.
efficient. Like, yeah, he might have stuck in a box, and that's how I. To be honest, I'm a very I when I play guitar, and you'll know this because you know every one of the fucking riffs I've ever played in my life. Because for everyone listening, for my mum listening, me and Joe lived together for like what 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. We were in a band. We're in a band together. We studied music, so he's heard every single chop I've ever played, and I'm the same. Obviously, I would say I'm not the same as Jimi Hendrix. I am the same in the terms of I have a specific little box I play in, and that's what I like doing, and that's fine. Whereas there's obviously other incredible guitar players who could go from like the first fret on the E string and do a big run right up to the 22nd fret on the high E string. You know what I mean? And that's fine. But I think
But the
they're
way
also.
he the way he played was it was very musical and it was listenable.
It was
Like it wasn't.
it was rhythmic as well.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
totally. It was very
like
percussive.
it was
Yeah.
driving, percussive, like, and also, and again when he played, he played with like a free kind of normally, yeah, like Ginger Baker on drums, was it, or
Mm,
and then a really good bass player as well. I can't remember. So it was again that he was like driving it, and he was also a very good songwriter. I
mhm.
actually think he's got a really like lovely voice. Like he was apparently
Yeah,
really
good
nervous. He
voice.
was apparently a very really nervous guy, and he hated his like singing voice, and he used to always think like like that's why he was obviously doing a lot more guitar playing than singing. But I actually think he's got a really nice voice. Like
Yeah,
I
he's good vocalist. Yeah,
so sorry, I spent a long time on Jimmy there, but
yeah, yeah.
that's
No,
and then the last one. All right, so I'm just gonna stick Jimmy on the list there. All right, the last one, modern. This is the most modern one that we will have on this list. But I feel like some modern representation is not a bad thing because I mean, we're
no.
currently living in a a society. Um, so she is a part of. I think she's almost the top selling digital artist of all time, and She recently broke the Beatles record to have 3 UK #1 albums in 9 months. So she released 3 albums. Sorry, that was the cutest thing ever. There he is. Hiya. It's like, what do you have to say on the matter? Um, so that was perfect. Sorry. So she released 3 albums in the and they all
Nine
went to number in
months.
9 months, and they all went to #1.
I have no idea who this is.
You do, mate.
Adele,
No, no,
Amy Winehouse,
no, mate. I'm
still
talking
alive.
as alive as you could possibly be. I'm saying she is like one of the biggest modern day music superstars. Like, and also, I think one of the most talented and like incredible songwriters.
Hit me.
One of your favorite artists has had a relationship
Oh,
with this
Taylor
person.
Swift.
Yes, I'm throwing the hat in for Taylor. Right, I love Taylor Swift. All right, I want the world to know it. I want my mum to know it. I want you to know it. All right. I listen to her probably every second or third day, right? Because not the early stuff, like not the early Twilight country stuff, which is fine, just not my thing. Like that album she released, Reputation, is incredible. Like it is in terms of modern pop music. I think it's one of the best. Like
Yeah,
one of the best
she
pop.
is a she is a fantastic songwriter.
Oh, she's
I remember the
unbelievable.
first. I remember the first time I knew you were trouble when
Trouble
you
when you
walked
walked
in.
in.
I remember I'd heard that about 4 or 5 times before I realised that it was Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And when I found out that it was Taylor Swift, I I don't know why, but I like I got really intimidated because I was like because I thought it was like just a generic pop song written by
Like a kind of one.
record label executives and like
Yeah,
put
yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? And I thought, holy shit, that's been written by like a quote unquote singer songwriter, and it's just like expert pop
Oh,
song.
she,
I was
she,
like, and
yeah.
I think how I got intimidated was because I was like, oh, fucking hell, I don't think I could ever have done that.
Well, she has again. She shifted genre
Mm-hmm.
effectively and really cleverly, like in terms of
Yeah,
marketing
and like
herself. You know.
and maybe you wouldn't even say shifted genre, but she's evolved
Yes, sorry, you're right. Yeah, she's
well.
yeah, and I feel like now and I love the stuff she's putting out now because it genuinely just seems like. I mean, don't get me wrong, the stuff she was putting out before, she wanted to put it out, but the stuff she's putting out now just seems like a real like kind of passion because she released like
Mm-hmm.
one. I think it was not the last one, but the one before, and it was like a very mellow, kind of like country, kind of folky kind of thing, and it seemed like a bit of a passion project, and I loved it. Like I was like, that is very nice that she, and I think she gets a lot of shit. Like I think she gets a lot of like really unnecessary shit. Like I don't really see where the kind of I just want people to leave Taylor alone. Okay, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the numbers she's putting in, by the way, like the amount of albums she sell to have 3 UK number ones in 9 months. Think about that space of time. Think about how long people usually normally take between releasing albums: 2, 3, 4 years.
I mean, she's probably got notebooks upon notebooks of
Oh,
songs
yeah,
that
yeah.
she could just like pick from to create these albums.
And do you know what? I genuinely think that she's worthy of being like in terms of if we're talking someone modern, like a modern
Mm.
superstar that isn't Justin Bieber. I'm
Yeah,
saying and someone who's genuinely talented.
and I
Maybe
think
not.
we will look at, and she has won songwriting
Oh
awards.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, yeah,
I, I think we'll probably look back on her in 30, 40 years time, and there'll be hordes of female pop stars that'll be citing her as a major
yeah.
influence.
Oh yeah, yeah. And she gets. I really do hate it because I watched. Of course, I watched her movie documentary thing, and she talks a lot about how particularly the press, the way the what they do to like young women, like especially because
Mm-hmm.
when she really started releasing her music when she's young, she was like 17, 18, and she
Mm-hmm.
said in the papers I was too skinny, or I my hair was too fierce, or I was too bossy, or I couldn't keep a boyfriend, or I couldn't keep this, keep that, and it was never writing about how I had just literally sold like 10 million copies of my album,
Mm-hmm.
and all the stuff that they wrote about. One was never true, and two is none of their business. But they were
Yeah.
like the way that they were, and again they do that. They wouldn't do that to a man. They wouldn't. I
No,
mean,
you're
listen,
right.
listen. We look at John Mayer, right? They're not going slating him for how many partners he's had, you know?
No,
Whereas for her,
no, they're not.
they're like, oh look, how many boyfriends has she had? Who the fuck cares? She can have as many as she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely. She can have as many as she wants. And doesn't matter. As long as the only thing I care about is she a good musician and is she a good person? And I think
Good
yes on both.
person. Yeah, I think
I think she
that,
seems like a good person, considering how famous she is. You know what I mean? It would be hard to. So yeah. Sorry, I love Taylor Swift so much. All right, okay, it's out there. So we now have. I'm gonna. So the first thing we need to. So I'm gonna just go over the 11 that we've got. All right, just for the viewers, right? So we've got the Beatles, Blink 182, the Descendants, Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, Slipknot, Kraftwerk, Oasis, Nirvana, Taylor Swift, and Jimi Hendrix. Now,
like that is an eclectic bag of.
listen, see if you were only allowed to listen to those 11 artists for
You'd be
the rest of
set.
this year.
You'd be
Be fine.
set for life.
Now,
Imagine that lineup at a festival.
oh, mate. I mean, it'd be pretty impressive. 'Cause, like, uh, um, so we've never. So this is the first time in this podcast that we've actually had more than 10. So that means that, and because I put in more options, you get to veto one of mine. Okay.
You'll need to
I'll
like have
remind you.
a specific theme tune for this part
I know,
where sudden death.
Okay. Oh, I was thinking something more
Oh well,
jovial.
you have a tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'll put something in there. I'll find something. I'll record it because I'm
So
actually a musician.
I have to veto an option.
Yes. So you can, to be honest, you can veto one of yours if you want, but you can veto one of mine's. You know, because I imagine you wouldn't veto one of yours because they're your options. So you can veto one of
I'm
mine's.
Yeah. So my veto would be for Oasis.
He's done it though. He's done it. All right.
Do I have to explain myself?
No, that's fine. Listen, you do whatever you want. Listen, this is.
Well,
Oh, it's okay, mate. You can.
I'll
It's up to you.
unpack it that decision. I just think that yes, we discussed that they had a big impact on culture in Britain and the way people acted and acted like them. And I just think in a wider sense, they've not had as much of an like their influence is very narrow. It's very like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I said it before. I said it before. It's
And
like
I'll say it again.
people don't go out and make music inspired by the Beatles, Oasis. Sorry, I feel like they go out and just want like act like and play like the Beatles. But
Yeah,
it's this very narrow sort of influence they've had compared to the other ones,
yeah,
which I think you can see the influence of them into other genres.
yeah. That's
Whereas like
fair.
Oasis is just like Oasis has just inspired
Yeah.
other Oasis bands.
Yeah, do you know what? You're right, and that's fair, and I give it to you. That's fair. All right. So the next part we need to do is we need to put. It's too hard. I've tried it before. It's too hard to put it from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what we're gonna do is there's gonna be a top 5 and a bottom 5. They're not going to be in specific
Okay,
order, but they're going to be so like top tier and bottom tier, and then there's going to be one
okay,
that's going to be ultimate. So what I'm going to do is right, and again I'm going to put you on the pressure because it's my podcast. I'm going to do what I want. Um, I'm going to go through. I'm going to say names of these bands, and you're going to tell me if you think it's a top tier and bottom tier, and then after it, we'll see where they are, and we might have to change some things. But does that make sense?
yes,
So if you're thinking top tier, they're going to the top 5. Bottom tier, they'd be bottom 5.
okay.
Okay. Right. So I'm gonna go through them. All right. And you need to tell me. All right. So Slipknot.
Bottom tier,
Oh, that's it though. Aretha Franklin.
top tier.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Can you hear the cat?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that what you're
cute.
laughing at?
Yeah, it's cute. It's like she's like, no, daddy, please, not Slipknot.
She wants out. Give us a minute.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
No, love you.
Out you go. Out you go, kitty. All right. All right. Nirvana.
Top tier.
K-Swizzle.
Who?
Taylor Swift.
I think you said K. I think you're like Kanye West or something.
Yeah.
Bottom tier.
All right. Your favorite. Kraftwerk.
I'm going to say top tier, just
Did you hear
because of
that?
their
Did you hear that, everyone? He says top tier. All right. Jimi Hendrix.
top tier.
Okay. Oh, it's getting tasty, by the way. Blink 182.
Bottom tier.
Oh. Oh. David Bowie.
Top tier. No, bottom tier.
Really? Okay.
Mm.
Okay. The Descendants.
Bottom tier.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think that leaves one more little band called the Beatles.
Top tier.
All right. So we now have, and I don't know if you did it on purpose or it was you managed to get it perfectly 5 and 5, which is nice. So in the bottom tier, right, we've got Slipknot, Taylor Swift, Blink 182, David Bowie, and the Descendants. All right. And in the top tier, got Aretha Franklin, Nirvana, Kraftwerk, Jimi Hendrix, and the Beatles. If
Can I
I,
swap?
yeah,
Oh, okay, sorry.
oh no, so the only thing that I was going to swap, and I think maybe it's just me being selfish. I would have swapped David Bowie for Kraftwerk, but is that
Okay,
just because
that's
I don't
exactly what I
know
was going to
them?
say.
But yeah, it's
I was going to say the same thing.
yeah, just because again, I'm pretty selfish and I don't know who they are, so they mean nothing to me. Um, you mean nothing. Okay, so that revised bottom tier: Descendants, Kraftwerk, Blink 182, Taylor Swift, Slipknot. Then top tier, you've got Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, Nirvana, and Aretha Franklin. What a fucking lineup, by the way. Now that starting 11, that is
That's
so.
an elite squad.
So now it's got to the final part is just saying what the definitive, the most influential act of all time is. What's your initial?
Mine would be the Beatles.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to. I don't know why I wanted it to not be them,
It just
but
seems
like
so.
it
It just seems
seems.
so obvious. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite a sort of boring answer, but you can't deny
Okay. How about this?
their
Then?
influence.
Who would you say would be second of that list? Who do you think would be second?
Hendrix.
Interesting. Okay. So
Who
Beatles
would
and
you
then.
say would be? Who would you say would be second?
Oh, see, I was. Do you know you're probably right with Hendrix? To be fair, like, because I was close to Nirvana just because I don't know if they're maybe getting handicapped because they're not back in the 60s or 70s. You know what I mean? Because they're
Mm.
closer to our time, so they're getting like, so it's maybe harder to think of like, but it's hard to like if you I think if you were doing it like for the modern era or like in the 90s, like Nirvana would be probably like number one. You know what I mean? Like of like 90s acts, which I might do if I get commissioned for any more episodes. But yes, so there we go. That is after an almost 2 hour discussion, we
2
came to the
hours.
conclusion that the
Conclusion.
Beatles are the
Beatles and
most
Jimmy.
and
I don't think
Jimi
that really
Hendrix.
needed
But I also think there was other.
there was some great suggestions in there as
Oh
well.
yeah, yeah. Apart from
Great.
Oasis,
No, but listen, we had a really good discussion on
yeah,
Oasis, and I think
yeah,
we fought their corner well.
yeah,
I think we also when we cut them, it was well
yeah.
discussed,
No, it
and
was. To be fair, it was to be fair.
yeah, I think it was that was. Listen, I think most people would when most people would agree with
Mhm.
our final decision, and I think the listeners will have definitely learned something about a genre that they maybe not familiar with.
Listen, at the end of the day, that is all. See, right before we finish up, right? Is there an album that if you could just suggest to someone that you think that they've maybe not listened to or heard, is there an album that you would suggest to whoever's listening to this they should go and listen to like after? It doesn't need to be anyone on our list. It could be someone, very underground or like just. Is there anything
Oh,
that you would be
Jack.
like, go and listen to, like anything that you've been listening to recently that's really.
Go and listen to, and my God, it's escaped me the name of it. Go and listen to "The Way It Is" by Bruce Hornsby and the Range.
Oh, okay. Okay. And my one for anyone listening is going to be "There Is Only You" by the Excerpts, because
Great
I
album.
think there is not a bad song on it. And that's very opinion oriented, but there's not one song on that album that I dislike. There's not even one song on that I just kind of like. I love every song on that
Look,
album.
it is a collection of certified bangers.
Like it's criminal that I hope that album becomes some sort of like, I think it is in Scotland, but obviously not.
Cult.
Yeah, like because of just how incredible band, like over and
I
so
might,
good
I
live
might,
as
I
well.
might, I might go and listen to that album
Do it now.
after this. It's such a good album.
Such a good
It's
album.
just the perfect rock album.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so that is the end of um that is the end of top tens with friends. Not forever, hopefully, just for today. But thank you.
Oh,
I know, I know. Oh, thank you so much for coming on, Joe.
I've
I
had a
have.
blast.
This has been one of my. I've loved all the other ones, but I think I've loved the chat. I've loved the chat on this. I think. I don't know. It was a lot of fun, and for everyone listening, this is up on Spotify. It's also, there's a video version on YouTube if you want to see our faces and see Joe's cat. That's also, and then also what else? I'm massive on TikTok. So if you're on TikTok,
And that's not a joke. He has like he is
go and follow me.
blown up on TikTok.
I'm maybe the biggest person on TikTok right now.
Can I plug my
Yes,
socials
yeah.
as
Sorry,
well?
I was going to give you your little plug
Yeah,
session
just
now.
I'm Joe Gallacher Music on TikTok as well. I post tutorials, little snippets of songs that I've written, guitar solos, things like that. Yeah,
And they're
come
fucking
join the fun
sick,
over
by the
there.
way. They're absolutely sick. Like, could not honestly couldn't recommend them more highly. Um, Great. Well, yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I never ever prepare what I'm saying when I'm finishing this, so just make sure you're drinking lots of water.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
Stay very hydrated, and
Get the
yeah,
vaccine.
yes, please, please, please do it. Like, just please.
Jack, you're going to be accused of being like a government plant now.
Yeah, yeah. That's the plan all along.
Uh,
Okay, well, thanks. Stay safe and love you all.